Welcome to the webinar, Navigating the Supermarket Maze, How to Avoid the Marketing Gimmick. My name is Stephanie Turkel, and I am one of the clinical health consultants with True Health Diagnostics. I'm also a registered dietitian, and I'm delighted to be here with you this evening. So we'll go ahead and get started navigating the supermarket and taking a virtual journey through the supermarket. And hopefully at the end of this broadcast, everyone will be supermarket savvy. Okay, many of us feel as though we go to the grocery store with good intentions, yet we end up leaving with unhealthy food. And today we will equip you with the Supermarket Smart to help you survive your next trip to the grocery store. So think about your own shopping experiences. I know for myself, when I go to the store to pick up one or two items, a lot of times I end up leaving with a basket full of groceries, and probably half of which I didn't intend to buy. And many of those items are processed foods versus whole foods. And so going into the supermarket with a plan can really help to walk away with what you were hoping to get when you left. A couple of statistics I'm going to share with you tonight, one of which includes the fact that 2/3 of what we buy, we had no intention of buying. Just like my example, oftentimes I'll go to the store, even as a dietitian, I'm only going to buy a few things, and the majority of my purchases are things that I didn't intend to buy. And one of the things that we have come to understand is that supermarkets encourage this behavior. They're in the business to sell, and therefore they're designed to get you to buy, and therefore once you have that food home, eat more. Let's take a look at the store layout. Okay, the grocery store is designed to stimulate shopping. So the entire layout and design of the grocery store is to maximize the consumer purchasing dollar. They have candy and magazines in the checkout aisle. So when we're waiting to check out, we're kind of looking at those colorful things at the counter. There's a bakery at the front, so right when you walk in, you smell that wonderful baked bread. There's a flower shop at the front, a bank, and a deli and coffee bar, and even a pharmacy. So some of those things are really nice because you can go into a supermarket and it's one-stop shop. You can kind of get all of your purchases made if you plan very well for it. But a lot of times we come home with many impulse purchases. Okay, so again, we have produce near the front, dairy, eggs, and meat, and other staples in the back of the store. So think about a lot of us as consumers, the thing that is always on our list, or even our mental list, even if we didn't write one out, is milk. For many shoppers, that is a must purchase. Sometimes we only go into the store to pick up milk. And most every grocery store, the milk section is in the very, very back. So you have to walk through the entire store. And if you're like me, you'll pick up a few things along the way going to and coming from the milk counter. So by the milk, there invariably are, packages of cookies that again create that impulse buy. Free samples are encouraging us to buy those products. And as you're going to the milk section, you see all these wonderful packaged foods. And if you happen to be hungry, your likelihood of purchasing more food than what you intended increases dramatically. So let's take a look. When we're on an aisle in a grocery store, let's kind of take a look at that arrangement of the shelves. Just like with the layout and design of the supermarket itself, those shelves are very purposefully designed. The top of the shelf will have smaller brands, more gourmet type items, regional brands. Kind of think about the canned vegetable aisle, if you will. The second and third shelves, the bullseye zone, this is at eye level of adults. This is where the best sellers and the leading brands are. Top brands like Dole and Del Monte are going to be here. And then just right below that, you're going to see what the kids are seeing. So you're going to see the kids' eye level here. And foods are marketed to kids at this particular level. And then, of course, down below, again, if you're on the vegetable aisle, the same products, like if we're looking at sweet peas or if we're looking at canned carrots, for example, you're going to see the generic and the store brands and the private label brands here versus, the leading brands. And so the ones that are a little bit more cost-effective are going to be at the lower shelf on the grocery store shelf. So let's take a look at the cereal aisle here. What we're seeing at the very top of the cereal aisle are the adult type cereals, the unsweetened cereals like Total, Basic 4, and other things, Cheerios. And even that middle section is going to have some of the, name brand products that we're used to seeing in the grocery store. But just below that, we see what the kids are seeing. And these are foods marketed to children. Dora the Explorer, Lucky Charms, the cartoon character, the colorful cereals, the sugary cereals are down below. And then you see more bulk type cereals at the very bottom as well. And so they're very careful. They know who their audience is, they know who their customer is, and they take advantage of the locations of not only areas of the store, but the specific shelves as well. Okay, so one of the things that I like to bring up when I go on a grocery store tour with my clients is the concept of whole foods versus processed foods. And as dietitians and health consultants, we really like to promote the whole foods because we know we get more nutrition from whole foods, we get more fiber, more vitamins and minerals, and less excessive calories, fats, and salt that are in the processed food. So let's take a look here. A whole food generally has nothing added to it. It's going to be minimally processed, if at all. It has nothing added, nothing removed. It's still in its natural shape. And generally, it's going to have a short list of ingredients. Conversely, a processed food has an altered size and shape. So think about whole chicken that you would get at the butcher shop, whole muscle chicken, versus chicken nuggets. So the whole chicken has the natural shape. Chicken nuggets can be shaped like gold nuggets. That's the most common chicken nugget shape, but some of them are shaped like rings. Some of them are shaped like zoo animals or even dinosaurs, and so of course that doesn't look anything like a chicken. So that's kind of something to think about. A lot of times processed foods will have added fats, sugars, salt, and other maybe preservatives, and even colorings or dyes. They've had part of their original structure removed. It does not look like it did in nature, and many times we'll see a long list of ingredients on these processed foods. So which is a whole food and which is a processed food? Well, on this screen, definitely we can say, of course, the corn is a whole food. It's what we see if it were growing, in a cornfield. The corn chips, though, It's been processed. We see honey. Yes, honey is with sugar, and although it is a naturally occurring product, it's a good thing to consume in moderation, of course. So even some natural foods, we definitely want to keep at a minimum. Here we go with some more examples. This one is with regard to fruit. So on the left, we see a package of Scooby snacks. These are fruit-flavored gummy snacks. Down at the bottom, we see a variety of 100% juice. And then on the right, we see an apple. Well, of course, I'm sure everyone would always choose the apple as the whole food here. Down at the bottom, this is a processed food. It is 100% juice. Of course, we know that to get apple juice, we have to squeeze that apple. And, the juice, of course, is what is squeezed out of the apple. What is left behind is that wonderful pulp containing all the fiber that's so healthy for us. And even though the juice comes from a natural product, an apple, it is processed, and juice really isn't much different than Kool-Aid, even 100% juice, because it's pretty much just sugar and water, a couple of vitamins and minerals, but really nothing like the apple from which it came. Then we look at the Scooby snacks, and we, of course, can say definitely that is a processed food. It doesn't have a natural shape or even a texture. And, of course, the sugars in this, even though it's made with real fruit juice, the sugars are very much concentrated. And sometimes they even add sugars to products like these as well. Okay, so how do you shop for whole foods? We know we need to shop for them. What is the best approach? Well, in most grocery stores, you may have heard that if you shop around the perimeter, you're going to be doing pretty good, because that's where most of the whole foods are. The whole foods in the dairy section, the frozen food section. I love frozen vegetables and frozen fruits because they're very close, if not better sometimes, than fresh, because they're always picked when they're at their best in season. They're flash frozen. The vegetables are parboiled a little bit, and they're individually quick frozen, and they're really easy to use. It's a great, convenient, minimally food, because sometimes we can't get to the grocery store every couple of days, as long as our fresh produce will survive. So it's nice to have that frozen option. And so I would say frozen foods definitely would fit in the whole foods category. We have our meat counter on the left, and then our produce section down at the bottom. So pretty much the perimeter of the store is going to have most of your whole foods. There are a few hidden gems in that big grocery section. So as this this particular slide suggests, stick with the perimeter, and then pick one or two aisles that you want to go down. Maybe you want to look for your unsalted natural bulk nuts. That might be in the bakery section, for example. Or you might want to get your canned fish products like tuna fish or what have you. And then maybe a few other items like old-fashioned or steel-cut oatmeal. And so just pick a couple of aisles that you want to go down. Really try to avoid that big salted snack aisle with the salted chips and crackers and snack cakes, because those foods have a whole lot of calories. They're heavily processed. They have a lot of hydrogenated fats, many of them do, and sometimes have a lot of salt and saturated fats. But if you think about the nutritional quality, pretty low in nutritional value. Okay, and so if we shop in this manner, it's a lot easier to go in, get what we need, and get out versus staying in the grocery store for a long period of time. So here we go. Whole foods. Look for fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, frozen fruits and vegetables, and unsalted nuts. natural nuts. Sometimes we'll see the natural word on the package. Avoid processed foods. So fruit and vegetable juices, I like to avoid those. Vegetable juices are a little bit better than fruit juice, but many of them are going to be pretty high in sodium. I'm not a big fan of canned fruits or vegetables. I do like canned beans. So when you just don't have the time to soak dry beans and cook them, it can be a very lengthy process. So canned beans are really nice, convenient foods. You can rinse them off to rid that extra sodium. But I don't use a lot of canned fruit. If you do use canned fruit, look for fruit with no added sugar. Especially avoid that heavy syrup because it can be a lot of added sugar in those. Of course, we want to avoid those fruit snacks, the fruit gummies, fruit leathers, like the fruit roll-ups. Veggie chips. Veggie chips really don't have a whole lot of vegetable in them. And even salted and seasoned nuts, pretty high in sodium, so it's a whole lot better to go with the unsalted. And so this is a kind of a nice page of what to look for and what to try to avoid. Okay, so some shopping tips here. For fruits and vegetables, really go for color. Buy what's in season. A lot of times when you go in the produce section, you'll see a huge display of an item at a really good price. It's either in season or the store just got a really great deal on this particular item, or maybe they just overbought. So you can take advantage of those price breaks when something's in season. Buy small for flavor. So baby fruits and vegetables, a lot of times they're sweeter and tastier. And then look for organic produce because they use fewer pesticides and herbicides in their production. With meat, whole foods, go for it. So things like fresh, lean meat, white meat chicken. Don't consume the skin on poultry because that's where most of the fat is in that flesh. Some pork cuts are lean. So pork loin is a great example. And then, of course, we love fresh fish, shellfish, and eggs. These are great lean protein choices. With red meat, look for 100% grass-fed. And choose lean cuts like sirloin. Try to avoid processed foods, cured meat, hamburger meat, anything that's deep fat fried. Again, cured meats like bacon, sausage, hot dogs, deli meats, and even potted meats like Spam. Also frozen breaded protein items like chicken finger, fish sticks, even mozzarella sticks. If they've already been breaded and frozen, they've already been through the deep fat fryer once. And so even if you take it home and bake it, it's still been deep fat fried, and a lot of preservatives have been added to the product. So it's better to go for fresh. Okay, so here's one example. If you're, choosing a pork product, the much healthier version is going to be a pork loin that's been roasted versus a hot dog. With dairy products, look for skim and low-fat milk. The fat in yogurt and any dairy product is saturated fat, which tends to raise cholesterol. So when you're sourcing your dairy products, go for low-fat or skim. And then low-fat cheeses, use regular block cheeses in moderation. And cottage cheese, low-fat cottage cheese is a nice choice. The processed dairy foods that we like to avoid are things like ice cream bars, processed cheeses like American Singles and Velveeta, and even sweetened yogurt. A lot of these yogurt products, even the refrigerated kind, are very much like a dessert. So look for plain yogurt and then throw your flavorings in it. You might throw some dried fruit pieces or some chopped up nuts. That makes a much healthier yogurt versus one that's already been pre-sweetened or fruit added to it. If you're looking for non-dairy milk alternatives, these are some samples, some suggestions for those. Soy is probably the one in this list that's the most nutritionally complete when you compare it to cow's milk. And then when you choose these milks, look for unsweetened. And also check the ingredients list. Whenever I'm shopping, I like to look at the nutrition facts label that's shown on your product on the right here. But I also like to compare that to the ingredients list and see what's in that list of ingredients. You might be surprised to find a lot of ingredients in a product that shouldn't contain sugar, having a lot of sugar added in a lot of different forms. So always look at your ingredient statement and your nutrition facts label, and that really gives you the best information about the product. The information that you see on the front of the package, it's good information. Some of it's regulated, but oftentimes it's just an advertisement. So here we go. Here's a fat-free cheese product, and I'm not a big fan of fat-free cheese, and here is why. If we look at these singles, and this is a fat-free sharp cheddar, we think, oh, well, you know, it must be great. It's fat-free. And I know back in the 80s and early 90s, we, as a country, were on a fat-free craze. And so that's when all the fat-free products came out, like the Smackwells and the fat-free cheeses and fat-free ice cream and so forth. But to make those products palatable, they have to replace that fat with something. And so in this fat-free cheese, and you think, what should be the ingredients for cheese? Well, there has to be milk because it's a dairy product, and there has to be some sort of an enzyme that's going to, you know, curdle the cheese, okay? So handful of ingredients. It shouldn't really have more than 5 ingredients for cheese. But because this is fat-free cheese, it has been heavily processed. So look at this giant list. We see whey and skim milk, milk protein concentrate. These all are dairy products. But then we see sodium phosphate, corn syrup, another listing for milk. We see salt, sodium hydroxide, partially hydrogenated soybean oil, and so on and so forth. And so I wanted to point out the partially hydrogenated soybean oil. That is telling us, the word hydrogenated is telling us that there are trans fats in this product. And if we happen to look at the nutrition facts label, it would show probably that the trans fat content is 0. And it can do that if there is less than half a gram of trans fats per serving. They can say 0. But what we know in the health field is that any amount of hydrogenated oils is harmful. And what it does is it raises the LDL, bad cholesterol, but also lowers that HDL, good cholesterol. And so there really is no health benefit of a hydrogenated oil. They're used to give our products these desirable characteristics. But it is a man-made manufactured oil. It's taking soybean oil and through the process in a lab, they hydrogenate it, or in a manufacturing facility, they hydrogenate it, and that hydrogenation process causes it to be a trans fat, the most harmful fat in our food supply. Okay, so when we get down to it, we see a slice of cheese is almost an ounce. It has 250 milligrams of sodium and 1 gram of sugar. But is it really cheap? Is it a real food? I would so much rather my clients have real sharp cheddar cheese versus going with fat-free cheese, and doing that in moderation. Here's another product that it has hydrogenated oils, margarine. We do know that butter is a saturated fat. It's a dairy fat. We know that saturated fats tend to raise cholesterol. But margarines have these hydrogenated oils. And like I mentioned earlier with the fat-free cheese, any amount of those hydrogenated oils are harmful. So again, in moderation, I much rather see my clients enjoying butter versus using margarine. And here are a couple of examples of butter that, one of the knocks about butter is that it's not spreadable from the refrigerator. So here are a couple that we found that are. The one on the left is a whipped butter, and what they did was they whipped air into the product. And so when you spread it out, it's got a little bit of air whipped in, and so it already encourages us to use a little bit less. The one on the right is a product that I really like. It's a butter that's been mixed with olive oil. And so this is a great option as well. It's nice and spreadable. And again, it's not a heavily processed product like the margarine. Starches. Okay, so here are some starches. Not all carbs and not all starches are bad. Most Americans, though, want to think consistency and control when it comes to starches and overall carbs, because as Americans, we do tend to eat more than we should. So we want to think about the volume, but we also know that there are healthier versions of starches and those that are less healthy. And the way to really determine that is to think about, okay, what's a whole food versus a processed food? So the items on the left are going to be your whole food items, whole grains like brown rice and quinoa, wild rice, popcorn, bulgur, and then your wonderful high fiber legumes like lentils, beans, pinto beans, black beans, other whole grains like old-fashioned oats and stone ground grits, and then some starchy vegetables like potatoes, squash, pumpkin, and I always recommend using those skins when you're cooking. Leave the skin in, make sure you wash it and scrub it, wash it with cold running water, and those skins really do add a good source of fiber. The processed starches and carbs that we want to limit, avoid, are most cereals. Most dry cereals tend to have a bit of sugar. My favorite cereals, of course, I love oatmeal on the left. Another good choice if you're looking for a dry cereal is just good old-fashioned Cheerios. Many cereals are going to be highly processed and high in sugar. Breads and pastas that are not whole grain, you want to keep those to a minimum. Biscuits are usually made from refined flour, plus there's a lot of fat added. Cinnamon rolls, just like a biscuit, except there's a lot of sugar. Same thing with donuts. And then, of course, cakes, cookies, French fries, candy bars. And remember the French fries, if it's fried in the package, chances are the manufacturer's already pre-fried those French fries or the tater tots. So even if we bake them, they've still already been fried. And then, of course, the list goes on: candy bars, chips, prepackaged flavored oatmeal, granola bars. These tend to be heavily processed, higher in sugars, lower in fiber. Okay, so sweets and sweet drinks. So take a look at these foods and think to yourself, are these natural? Are these whole foods? We see, looks like jelly beans, Starburst, Cheapy Puffs, Oreo cookies, Crush. They're all wonderful, tasty treats, but are they whole foods? Could they be grown in the ground or produced agriculturally? No, we have to, they're made in a manufacturing facility. They are not whole foods. And so again, they're going to be limited in nutrients. They're going to be usually high in calories, low in fiber. Many of them are also high in sugar and salt. Okay, so organic versus non-organic. And so this is a question I commonly hear from my patients. Do I really need to think about buying some food in the organic category? We have a couple of issues here. One is pesticide residue. We can also think about herbicide residue as well. Farmers use various sprays for not only pests but also herbs or weeds, and then bacteria. And so all of our produce that's produced and sold in the United States in grocery stores, they are under USDA regulation. Even the conventionally grown products are regulated, and farmers just can't use anything on their products. But conventionally grown, they have a much longer list of approvable items for pesticides versus organics. Organics much more scrutinized. They have a much shorter list of approvable products, and they are organic based products. Okay. So if something is 100% organic, it can only contain organic ingredients produced without synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, antibiotics, hormones, genetic engineering, irradiation, or growth hormones. And they get that seal of certification, USDA organic. So you may see this in your produce section, and it is on some other sections in the grocery store. And so there's a lot of talk about GMOs, and I wanted to address that here. The GMOs, or the genetically modified organisms of concern, are the ones that are grown to withstand the use of glyphosate, which is the marketed name is Roundup, and that is used to control weeds. So organic farmers cannot use that particular product. So if something is organic, then you know it is not that GMO product. A second category of organic is made with at least 70% organic ingredients, no ionizing radiation, but they can't have that USDA seal. So when you see that green USDA organic seal, you know that it is 100% organic, and it's regulated by the USDA as such. Okay, so one of the consumer watchdogs is the Environmental Working Group, and every year they give us a list of the dirty dozen. And this kind of helps consumers be able to stretch their grocery dollar, because it would be wonderful if we could buy everything organic, but many of us really have to watch that budget, and we really want to target our dollars to be as effective as possible. So the Environmental Working Group helps us out, and they survey and they look at pesticide, herbicide residue on food, and they see which ones are highest in residues or have multiple different pesticide residues. So the ones that made the list of the dirty dozen include apples, strawberries, grapes, celery, peaches, spinach, sweet bell peppers. Now remember, these are not the hot peppers. These are the sweet bell peppers, your colorful green, red, yellow peppers, imported nectarines, cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, imported snap peas, and potatoes. So they're recommending that we, if we're going to buy organic, we really want to make sure we're buying these products organic, because these are the ones where our organic budget's going to do the best. They also give us a list of the Clean 15, and I'll share that with you in a moment. Every sample of imported nectarines and 99% of apple samples tested positive for at least one pesticide. The average potato had more than any other food. A single grape sample contained 15 pesticides, and then single samples of celery, cherry tomatoes, imported snap beans, and strawberries showed 13 different pesticides each. Okay, so now we have the Clean 15. So these are the ones least likely to have pesticide residue. So if you want to, buy some things conventional, they're saying these would be pretty good to buy conventional, especially if there's a good price savings, because when they compare them to the organic, there's not a big difference here. So relatively few pesticides on these food products. And avocados, incidentally, very, and pesticides. Okay. 89% of pineapples, 82% of kiwi, 80% of papaya, 88% of mango, and 61% of cantaloupe had no residue. And incidentally, these are foods that, the skins are really not edible. And so that would be another great reason to buy these conventional. Some pesticide residues can leach into the product, but in many cases it's going to be on the skin. So if you're not consuming the skin, then again, that's another reason to go with the conventionally grown. Okay. No single fruit sample from the Clean 15 tested positive for more than 4 types of pesticides, and only 5.5% of the Clean 15 had 2 or more pesticides. So pretty reliable testing here for buying conventional. But I always like to look at both. Look at the organic, I look at the non-organic, I look at pricing, and we also buy with our eyes, and we pick it up and we look at it. So definitely it's worth spending some time in the produce section to really maximize your shopping experience. So since 2011, the Dirty Dozen has been expanded to include 2 types of vegetables that contain trace levels of highly hazardous pesticides, and these are going to include leafy greens and your hot peppers. Okay, so here's the Clean 15 again, and the Dirty Dozen, and this now includes the hot peppers and the leafy greens. When you're buying produce, a couple of comments here, and you bring it home, really wash it good, especially right before you use it. If it's got a skin that you're going to eat, like potato skin, for example, rub it really good with a nice vegetable brush to really get into all the grooves, get that dirt out, because that'll help you get rid of the pesticides, herbicides, and also the dirt. And we don't really talk a lot about, I didn't say much about bacteria here, but there is a possibility, some bacteria is on the product, either from other consumers picking up the product and putting it back, or we know that bacteria tend to be on dirt. And if we get the dirt off our products, then we're getting rid of a lot of the bacteria as well. So that's another consideration. Okay, so tricks with the trade. So have you noticed that shopping carts are bigger? Well, that was a purposeful decision by our friendly neighborhood grocery stores, because they know that shoppers will buy more if they use a bigger shopping cart. There is no cart wash for shopping carts. They are just put right back in their rack for the next customer. So the stores really help us out by having these great dispensers of handy wipes to wipe them down. Or you can keep little wet ones in your purse to kind of wipe them down, because especially in cold and flu season, we definitely can spread germs that way, and so it's a nice thing to do as you're picking up your new grocery cart. It's so much better if you have the opportunity to shop when the grocery stores are not crowded. And that's because when we shop and there's a big herd of people, we tend to spend more time in the grocery store, and we tend to buy more. Studies have just shown that. So if you can go on a day where it's light, like a Monday or a Tuesday, even during the day, if you're lucky enough to shop during the day, definitely it'll be much easier to stick to your list. Okay, another trick of the trade is know your grocery store prices. Know the prices of your food items. Just like on what comes to mind is Price is Right on TV. Shoppers that know what the prices of foods are will recognize a good deal. And so it's really great to kind of stay in tune with what these grocery store prices are. Do you ever think about the music that's being played at the grocery store? A lot of times it's, slow, 80s music, and, it kind of lulls us into kind of leisurely walking through the grocery store, which can be nice, but the longer we stay, the more we're going to spend, up to 29% or more. And so one great trick is to bring your own music and listen to some upbeat music, and you can zip right through the store and spend quite a bit less. Another trick is those the foods that are displayed on the end cap of an aisle. Sometimes it's a special, and sometimes it's not. In fact, sometimes it's sold to various companies trying to promote their products, and because it's a nice piece of real estate in the grocery store. And so don't just assume that if you see a big display, it's always going to be a good deal. You want to think about what those prices should be, and if you really need those items. Going back to the produce section, if you see mist on fruits and vegetables, it's really nice. Sometimes they'll even play some thunder, and they'll shine, do some flashing lights to show lightning in there, and kind of make the produce section a little exciting with the mist, and it makes the produce look really beautiful. But it can also cause it to rot faster. And so just make sure you shake it off before you stick it in your bag, and then when you get home, wash it and kind of dry it off real well. Another thing, like I mentioned before, you're not the first customer to go through the produce section and looking at your fruits and vegetables. Many people pick them up, they smell them, they kind of feel of them, and that's okay. But just remember to wash all of your produce, even the really large ones like watermelon. Wash it really well before you cut it, because we don't want to bring that bacteria into the food surface. So wash it really good under cold running water. In the fresh seafood counter, a lot of times what you see in the fresh seafood counter has been previously frozen. And so always take some time to look at the frozen fish, because you might be able to find a better deal in the frozen section. And then, you can throw the item in your freezer and then cook it at your leisure. One thing that we're starting to see is 10 for 10. Now, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, I would see 10 for $1. Now, that was a sale. But I haven't seen 10 for $1 in a long, long time, but I do see this 10 for 10. And it still looks like it's a bargain, but oftentimes it's not. Sometimes, like this example says, the actual cost may be 89 cents a piece. And when they mark it 10 for 10, it looks like it's less, but it's actually quite a bit more. So we spend a whole lot more. So be careful of those marketing gimmicks like this 10 for 10. Just looking at it, I think I'm going to get a deal, but we may not be. Here's another one. More than 50% of shoppers decide not to buy items while in the checkout line. And this is why supermarkets have started making checkout lanes narrower with less space to offload items. And so beware of that. As our wonderful financial experts on TV will tell us, that paying with cash, you're more likely to spend less, even if you write out a check. We're more price conscious if we're paying cash or writing out a check versus using a credit card at the grocery store. And I'm guilty of this myself. I know that I'm more conscious about when I'm paying with cash versus using a credit card. So that can be a really good, helpful tool as a consumer. Plan for success. So shopping at a grocery store really should begin at home when you're planning out your family menu and looking at what recipes you're going to use and thinking about what ingredients you need to buy after you peruse your refrigerator and pantry to find out what you need. Then take a look at the circular, the ads that we get from our grocery stores. In the newspaper, we may have some coupons, and then we can plan our list and be ready to go. And sometimes if you're really good, you can plan your list by the aisle. You know exactly where you're going to go when you get there. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, don't shop hungry. consumers buy more if they're hungry when they go to the grocery store versus if they had just eaten a meal or a snack. It's much better to go shopping alone. You can have input from the family when you're planning your list, but it's much better to shop alone because if we bring the kids or we bring, our partner, we tend to buy more. Try to avoid the food samples, and this really helps. What you buy at the grocery store is going to be what you have at home, and so you can really control your nutrition by what you purchase at the grocery store. And then a good rule of thumb is try to go grocery shopping about once a week. And it's enough to where you're keeping the house stocked so you're not tempted to go out to eat as often. As a review, shop the perimeter of the store for your whole foods, fruit, vegetables, dairy products, meat and fish, and look for a rainbow, lots of different colors, especially those vegetables. And again, buy produce that's in season and you can save some money. And right now I'm seeing stone fruits like cherry, plum, peaches, nectarines, apricots. Those are in season right now, so that's a great thing. Again, choose whole foods. It should look like it does when it's growing. Avoid foods that contain artificial ingredients, contain more than 5 ingredients, generally, not always. Avoid partially hydrogenated oils. Avoid foods with a lot of added sugars, like this high fructose corn syrup. And when we see cartoons on the label, unfortunately, that means there's going to be a lot of sugar in the product. So plan, have patience, and practice, and outsmart the supermarket. In conclusion, I wanted to give you some helpful tips and information from True Health Diagnostics. That the help goes on. We have a beautiful Facebook page, True Health Diagnostics Facebook page, where we're putting out a lot of great information. We promote our blog here on the Facebook page, so you can look at our blog on Facebook. You can look at we have a blog site, so you can look at past archives as well. And we also, on our Twitter page, we have additional health tips, wellness challenges, and our handle is @TrueHealthDiag. And then we have health consultants as well with their own Twitter pages. We have a YouTube page on Pinterest. And here are the True Health links: Pinterest.com, My True Health, Facebook.com, True Health Diagnostics, and then our blogs are archived, blog.truehealthdiag.com. Okay, well, this concludes the Supermarket Savvy webinar. I hope you all learned something new today, and thank you so much for attending. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at any one of these social media sites, or you can look us up on truehealthdiag.com. Thank you so much, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.